Sometimes, even the smallest moments of connection can quietly make a meaningful difference. Welcome to Engagement and Connected Lives. I'm your host, MS. Today we are joined by Cathy Elliott, whose caregiving journey offers a thoughtful perspective on connection, resilience, and staying engaged through life's difficult moments. Can you share a little bit about your journey caring for your loved one?
Yes. I cared for my husband, and I'm still a caregiver for my mother, although she's in a facility. But my husband had type 1 diabetes and just started not wanting to get out and around. He had difficulty walking. But really, it started probably in 2019. He had a bad wound, and so he had some surgery and had the medication that I had to do for him. And then he was having more problems, and 2020, he had to get a below knee amputation. And so at that point, he was in a wheelchair, still pretty strong, still could do a lot of things for himself, but needed help. And our house, even though we thought it was very accessible, we ended up having to do some things to get rid of carpet and widen doors and that kind of thing. So he was right in the middle of the pandemic, of course. Okay. And so it was a little bit crazy. And he had different surgeries and had different issues. He was in and out of the hospital a number of times, and he was in and out of rehab. He was bedridden the last 8 months of his life. So I pretty much ended up doing everything for him, but had a helper come in for 4 hours a day, but I did it all the rest of the time. So it was a journey. He was strong. So for a very long time, he was able to, he had the upper body strength to move around and that kind of thing, in and out of chairs and stuff. But so health got worse over a period of 5 or 6 years. Ended up doing more and more.
So what was the hardest part of that experience that people usually don't talk about?
I think part of it is it's a slow grief.
Yeah. Take your time.
As their health and then mental capabilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the hardest thing, he didn't want anybody to help him. And he was like, I don't need a babysitter, because I didn't want to leave him alone. I had this fear, even though our house, we made it all accessible. He could get in and out. If there was a fire or even emergency bathroom situation, I didn't want him to be by himself. And so it was probably a year or so before we looked into having somebody come occasionally, because I would have to be in the middle of this. We were trying to get my mother's house ready to sell. So I'd have to be gone for several hours, at least an hour away. So I couldn't just run home. He got a little more used to having somebody here occasionally. And I think for him, letting go and being accepting of that. And then for me, finding people I trusted, that was, I think, challenging, giving that up, and then helping him without him feeling bad or wanted to do something that wouldn't be safe to do. Like you get into dealing with those situations.
It's a balancing act for sure.
Yeah.
So was there a moment when something shifted, when connections or engagements started to make a difference for him?
I think once that we started having a little bit of help, and people were always saying, Cathy, you need to do things on your own, which I did. I'm so happy that I had a hobby. I quilted. Like, I didn't have to be by his side every minute of the day, and could do some things like that. And when I started, once the pandemic lifted, I still wanted to do activities with my grandkids. My grandkids came over. They were great with him, and the wheelchair didn't scare them. They were, let me go get grandpa a drink. They were very loving and good with him, which instead of, I was concerned that they might be afraid, I would hire somebody and we would go do an activity, which was good for me.
Of course.
Steve got to see the kids. They didn't wear him out. And he was always like, yeah, you should go do that. There's practical things, right? But it was, I think that made a huge difference, being able to him connected to the world. We did a lot of driving. We did a lot of, let's get out and just drive places and get out in the sunshine.
Very nice.
Yeah.
In your experience, I'm sure pandemic was a big discontinuation from some of that.
There was a big separation, and of course you're terrified. And I was just extremely cautious, because I wasn't going to bring in COVID by me getting out.
Can imagine.
So we had a lot of things delivered. We did things like family Zooms. And I think that social piece, keeping that connection. And then I think also that made him feel good. And I think also having grandkids come over, like a shorter visit, I'd go take him somewhere and come back. So it didn't wear him out. So it was more energizing than wearing out, because you know how little kids can wear you out. But yeah, I think doing that kind of thing difference for him, and he always enjoyed having people, but especially later on it would wear him out. He didn't want it for a long period of time.
Of course.
Yeah.
So how did this whole experience change you personally?
I think you realize what you can do. And I also became a huge advocate. I spent a lot of time, I would write everything down at the doctor's, and then of course when he was going through this before I retired, I always had my laptop with me and I worked. I took all notes, and then I asked him the questions.
Of course.
You get the respect of the doctors and the nurses. And I learned how he had to have leg wraps, and so they taught me how to do that. The wound doctor, he had different times that we had to take care of that. I think from that point of view, I always wonder about people that don't have an advocate, because there's so much to absorb and learn. And then the fact that I was able to do all of that, I think he got the very last resort if he had to go into a facility. He had rehab a few times, and I would be there every day, and I knew I could take care of him better than they could. I had a nurse here 4 hours a day, and that also, I think at a certain point I was like, when I retired, I wanted to volunteer. So I started volunteering. I think that you don't wait to do things. There's some things obviously
Find a balance between,
but do what you can do and enjoy what you're doing and make the most of it. If you get scraps, make quilts. So I think that was a big thing. I think attitude, I was scared during COVID, but once you got past that, and I was very cautious. Yeah.
So what is one simple thing caregivers can do to help their loved ones be more engaged? The intentions are always the best, but how can they help them be a little more engaged and more in tune with the society?
Right, in tune. I think some of it is having conversations and knowing what it is that they enjoy or would like, right? Trying to still do what they can do, just not taking a drive and just doing, we enjoyed being adventurous in our own way. Which is silly, but, I've never been to this part of town. Let's go do that, or let's drive through this park. And so I think that's part of advice I would give. And then also for the caregiver to take care of themselves and be like you're listening and being engaged with them, but also making sure that you are taking care of yourself so that you can take care of them. So your energy. So I always made sure I got enough sleep, made sure. So to me, for a caregiver, it's very easy to get burnt out. And I really worked hard not to do that. Also, the person you're caring for does not want you to be burnt. Steve was always so appreciative of everything. He was like not wanting to impose. And I think that's a typical thing for someone, but being gracious about getting help.
What do you think people mostly misunderstand about caregiving? It's a very delicate balance.
I think that whatever they can do for themselves, you should let them do for themselves and encourage them to do. Because the more you do things, the stronger you'll be, whether it's getting up out of a chair. Like, you don't want to treat somebody like they're an invalid, even if they're not. Or you don't want to treat them as if they have diminished mental capabilities, even if they do, right? You want to be respectful always and listen to them and treat them. So I think sometimes, people pity the person and don't see the person, right? Yeah.
That can be disheartening, I would think.
Yeah.
Right. This has been incredibly insightful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sometimes the smallest moments of connection and participation quietly help people feel seen, supported, and connected again. Thank you for joining on Engagement and Connected Lives. Until next time.